All right. Good evening, everybody. We're about to get started. Welcome to tonight's presentation, Orientation for New Fiscally Sponsored Projects. My name is Colleen Hughes, and I am a Program Associate here at Fractured Atlas. Thanks so much for taking the time to attend this webinar. We really appreciate having proactive members who go out of their way to learn about our program policies and procedures before they dive headfirst into fundraising. So tonight's webinar is being recorded, therefore don't feel pressured to jot down copious amounts of notes. We'll send you a link to the recording later this week, which you are welcome to share with anyone that you think might be interested. And then there will also be an opportunity for questions at the end of the presentation, but feel free to chat me throughout as well. If it's relevant, I will answer your questions as we go. Otherwise, I will save them for later. All right, so in the last 12 months, our fiscally sponsored projects have raised more than $23 million. Fractured Atlas's fiscal sponsorship extends some of the benefits of our 501c3 status to artists and arts organizations so that they can solicit tax-deductible donations from individuals and institutional funding, which would otherwise only be available to nonprofits. Currently, we have more than 4,000 artists and arts organizations who are fiscally sponsored by Fractured Atlas. They are producing either one-off, discrete projects like a single film or a dance production, or we are sponsoring them for their ongoing artistic activities like a startup theater company or the work in progress of a visual artist. Fractured Atlas has the largest fiscal sponsorship program in the nonprofit arts sector, and how many Fractured Atlas staff members administer the program? Only 8. That's right, we are able to run the largest fiscal sponsorship program in the country with a lean staff of 8 individuals who also support our members using our other programs as well. When you give us a call or shoot us an email, you could be working with any one of us at any given time depending upon the nature of your inquiry. So a little bit about myself. As I mentioned before, my name is Colleen and I am a program associate here at Fractured Atlas. I've worked here for about 1.5 years now. I come from a nonprofit arts background and I also direct and produce theater in my free time. It's nice to meet you all. So the way that we're able to run a program of this size so smoothly and efficiently is that we have custom-built online tools that allow for much of the program to be automated. And there's a great deal of functionality at your fingertips that allows you to control a large portion of your fundraising activities. And the purpose of today's presentation is to show you a path forward with our fiscal sponsorship program by giving you a tour of what's available to you on our website and to outline some of our program policies and procedures. So once our board of directors approves your project for our program, you will then be able to log into our website and access your My Fiscal Sponsorship page. This is going to be your primary portal for interacting with the program. We're going to talk some more about the features of this page as well as our programs and program policies. So there's no substitute for hands-on learning, and we can't possibly cover everything in this presentation. So I encourage you to thoroughly explore this page on our website and read through our program policies and procedures, which are all available in our knowledge base as your first steps once you've set up with sponsorship. So one of the first things to understand about our fiscal sponsorship program is that it makes the distinction between earned and contributed revenue. So earned revenue refers to any funds given in exchange for a good or a service. This is usually known as a purchase or fee for service and is not considered tax deductible. Contributed revenue is any amount of money given without the expectation of receiving anything in exchange. And this is usually a donation or a grant in which a donor gives an amount of money to support your work but does not get anything in return. So contributed revenue is generally considered tax deductible. Earned revenue needs to be made payable to you directly. We do not process earned revenue for the purposes of our fiscally sponsored projects. Fractured Atlas can only accept contributed revenue for the purposes of our fiscally sponsored projects. We now accept projects that do have for-profit investors, though we cannot process private investments or equity. There is an addendum that we will ask projects to sign if they are expecting for-profit investors. We only process charitable donations from individuals or institutions for the purposes of our sponsored projects. So we can help you process donations or contributed revenue in 3 different ways. By debit or credit card on our website or on a crowdfunding campaign, donations made by check payable to Fractured Atlas, and non-cash donations of goods made in kind to for the charitable purposes of your project. We'll talk more about non-cash donations later. Each of our fiscally sponsored projects has a donation landing page on our website where they can direct donors who want to contribute by debit or credit card. We can accept credit card donations up to $20,000 per transaction. If you have the enviable position of knowing a donor who wants to contribute more than $20,000 and charge it to their credit card, you'll just need to ask them to do so over multiple charges and have them wait about 5 or more minutes between transactions so that our system doesn't think that it's a duplicate donation made in error. Donors who contribute by credit card are required to provide an email address, and then we automatically send them a receipt. Please note that you are prohibited from collecting credit card information from your donors and entering it into our website on your own. Donors must input their own debit or credit card info or contact Fractured Atlas to process a donation over the phone. This opens us up to some liability issues, as you, the sponsored project, are not authorized to use our credit card processor in this way. Your donation landing page is a public-facing page on our website where you should put content that you want potential donors to see. So this can be an image or a YouTube or Vimeo video, along with a brief description of your project or what your current activities are. You can edit your sponsored project's online profile on our website through your My Fiscal Sponsorship page under the Online Profile button. When you submit changes, an automated email will go out to a member of our staff asking for a review and approval before it goes live on our website. We typically turn this around in 1 to 2 business days. We'll either approve the changes outright, or we'll be in touch with you directly via email if we have any questions about the new material that you're putting on your profile. We can also accept check donations that are made payable to Fractured Atlas. You're welcome to have donors write your name or the name of your sponsored project in the memo line, but this isn't entirely necessary because we ask that your donors mail their contribution to you first. Once you receive donation checks from your donors, you'll then report the donations made by check on your My Fiscal Sponsorship page under the Donations heading. Here's where you'll create the donor record for check contributions. You'll provide the donor's name, contact information, and any other info available to you from their check before forwarding it on to us for processing and depositing. You'd be surprised how many unreported checks arrive at our offices, which we end up spending a lot of time doing detective work to figure out which of our fiscally sponsored projects they are recommended for. We often have to mail unreported checks back to the donor or back to you, as it is crucial that we receive this information in advance. So, to recap, your donors will send the check to you first. You will submit donation reports on our website, and then you forward the checks on to us for processing and deposit. You'll be sent an email notification once the donation is processed with a copy of the receipt to forward on to your donor with your thanks. We can accept check donations of any size, but those of $2,500 or more require an extra piece of documentation, the major gift letter. The major gift letter is a simple form letter that's available to download from your My Fiscal Sponsorship page for your donor to complete and sign. You're able to upload the major gift letter as an attachment to the donation report, but it's not required and can also be emailed or mailed to us at any time. Feel free to send us the check to process before you receive the major gift letter if you're not able to obtain both at the same time. We're happy to process reported checks of $2,500 or more without a major gift letter, but the donated funds will not become available to you until we are in receipt of a signed and completed major gift letter. As a nonprofit, we are required to submit ourselves to an annual internal audit, during which our auditors look for this extra verification of the donor's intent to donate to Fractured Atlas in support of your project. There's a quick question here about checks being given by hand. Certainly, the donor can give the check to you by hand, and then you would still just need to report it via your My Fiscal Sponsorship page, and then you can send it to our offices. If you are located in New York, you can also drop the check by our offices by hand as well once it's been reported. All right, so there are a couple different types of monetary donations that we cannot accept, namely cash and money orders. In order for us to issue a tax receipt, we need to be able to directly link money back to a specific individual or entity. A credit card transaction or a check with the donor's bank account and routing numbers on it provides that direct link. Because cash and money orders are not specific to an individual's financial institution or bank account, they do not provide that paper trail back to the donor. You're welcome to accept you're welcome to accept cash or money orders directly for donors who do not need for their contribution to be tax deductible. However, if they want a tax receipt, instruct them to contribute via debit or credit card on our website or by check made payable to Fractured Atlas. We can, however, help you accept non-cash or in-kind donations. These donations must be physical, tangible items that you can touch with your hands, the ownership of which is fully donated over to your project. So let's unpack that a little further. We can only process donations of physical, tangible items. So they need to exist in the real world and you need to be able to touch them with your hands. Donations of a person's time or services are not considered by the IRS to be a charitable tax-deductible donation. So if a restaurant donates food or beverage to you, they can get a receipt for those items. But if they donate their catering services, they cannot get a tax receipt that includes their contributed time. We can, however, accept gift cards or gift certificates from businesses that otherwise sell these items. In order to be tax deductible, non-cash donations need to be fully donated over for the charitable purposes of your sponsored project. So donations of rent or rental items would not count. If someone gives you equipment for free that they would normally charge a rental fee for and you need to return the items when you're done, that's really more of a loan even though they are waiving the rental fee. Similarly, donated space rentals wouldn't count as tax deductible as you're not being given what the IRS calls full interest in the property. In other words, if you have to give it back, it is not considered a donation. Finally, we cannot accept donations of donated airfare, air miles, or automobiles. As with check donations, you'll need to report non-cash donations on your My Fiscal Sponsorship page under the Donations heading. This is where you will also find the non-cash donation letter. The non-cash donation letter is another simple form for the donor to fill out where they provide a description and value the items that they are contributing. You can upload the non-cash donation letter to the donation report when you submit it through your My Fiscal Sponsorship page. For non-cash donations valued at $250 or more, we will require a photograph of the donated item or items. So be sure to take that photo as soon as you receive the donation, especially if it is donated food or beverage. With all donations that we process for the purposes of our fiscally sponsored projects, we deduct an administrative fee to cover the costs of running this program. Our administrative fee pays for our website maintenance, staff time, and things like credit card processing and bank fees. The fee starts at 7%, but as you raise more money, the fee is lowered on check donations. So the breakdown looks like this. If you raise $150,000 or more over the lifetime of your fiscal sponsorship, the administrative fee on check donations goes down to 6%. At $500,000 or more, it is reduced to 5%. And if you raise $1 million or more, the fee goes down to 4%. And we have had projects raise at least that much money over their time with us. The fee remains at 7% for credit card donations, as the processing fee that we incur does not change. We also charge a fee on the stated value of donated non-cash items. You can either have us charge this fee to your credit card on file or have us deduct it from your project's available fund balance. And you can always check your fund balance on your My Fiscal Sponsorship page under the Info/Reports heading. But maybe we're going a bit fast here and should take a step back, because before we have even started processing donations, how do we get people to actually consider making a contribution? Oh, I have a quick question here about non-cash donations. Yes, non-cash donations also incur the 7% administrative fee for the value of the goods. All right, so moving forward, we ask, this is often the first hurdle that budding arts entrepreneurs encounter. Every day we talk to artists or art startups who experience an initial queasiness about actually asking people for money. If this sounds like you, consider yourself in good company. All nonprofit artistic ventures in the United States require philanthropic support to keep in operation. That goes for the Metropolitan Opera in New York City or the Getty Museum in LA. Don't consider it panhandling or begging, consider it an offer. You're offering potential patrons an opportunity to get involved with something bigger than themselves. And with fiscal sponsorship, offering them tax deductibility as well. As soon as you're approved for fiscal sponsorship, we recommend that you send out an appeal asking for people to make a contribution and to let them know that their donation will now be tax deductible. So some different ideas: an email blast, a snail mail campaign, a newsletter, put it on your website, host a fundraising event, run a crowdfunding campaign. You should consider all of them at some point as part of your larger fundraising strategy. We have an individual appeal letter template among other fundraising templates available for you to take a look at on your My Fiscal Sponsorship page. Crafting a good letter is more than just plugging your info into a formula and pressing send. So I would strongly encourage you to use this template as a way to kickstart your brainstorming about the letter that you intend to send out. But before you actually send out your appeal to potential donors, please send us a copy first for our review and approval. You can email your fundraising materials to support@fracturedatlas.org. A good rule of thumb is that anytime you mention Fractured Atlas or promise donors tax deductibility or mention fiscal sponsorship, you should run it by us before sending it out. We require that you do this for a few reasons. First off, it's in your best interest to have another experienced pair of eyes take a look at what you're about to send out. At this point, I've probably reviewed about hundreds of donor solicitations and have a pretty good idea of what a successful, well-presented appeal letter looks like. We can offer you some tips and tools to potentially maximize the effectiveness of your fundraising materials. So we'll definitely provide feedback where appropriate, but we're also looking to see that you're correctly representing the fiscal sponsorship relationship. To that end, we've crafted some standard text that we require you to include with your donor solicitation materials. This can be found in our knowledge base. It's just a quick 2-sentence paragraph that succinctly summarizes the fiscal sponsorship relationship. You're welcome to include it as fine print at the bottom of your materials, but it is required to be in there somewhere. We're also looking to see what you're offering to your donors in exchange for the contribution. For example, are you offering advertising space? Unfortunately, you are not permitted to sell ad space through fiscal sponsorship or give it away as an incentive in exchange for a donation. You are, however, allowed to offer corporate sponsorship in exchange. So what's the difference? Well, it has to do with who maintains control over the content and placement of the ad. If your contributor has control over what will be listed in your materials and/or if you are in some way endorsing their products or services, that is considered advertising. If you maintain control over the content and you're not endorsing their product or services, this is considered corporate sponsorship. Typically, corporate sponsorship comes in the way of logo or name placement on your website or materials. Frequently, this will be posted as a thank you or in recognition of the sponsor. If you have any questions about this, please feel free to reach out to our staff and we'll be happy to assist. Other things we might be looking for: are you running a raffle? This might be a good idea, but you are prohibited from running it through your fiscal sponsorship with us. This means you cannot award donors raffle tickets in exchange for a tax-deductible donation. Raffles are considered a form of gambling, which is regulated at the state level, and it's not something that Fractured Atlas can get involved with. Whenever you offer donors rewards of goods or services in exchange for their contribution, this makes their donation partially deductible above and beyond the fair market value of the rewards that they are receiving. So, for example, if you are offering a $10 t-shirt in exchange for a $100 donation, $90 of that is tax deductible. Or if you're offering a $20 ticket in exchange for a $150 donation, $130 of that is tax deductible. We need donations to be at least partially tax deductible. You wouldn't be able to offer donors rewards of equal or greater value to the amount that they are contributing. Such an exchange no longer becomes contributed revenue and is considered purchased or earned revenue, which Fractured Atlas cannot process. One place where partial deductibility often comes into play is with a crowdfunding campaign. Frequently, fundraisers will offer rewards in exchange for donations through their campaigns. We have a platform available for our fiscally sponsored projects, which allows you to run a crowdfunding campaign and still offer your donors a tax receipt. This includes the ability for you to set up rewards with a fair market value attached, so we can issue accurate receipts to your donors. In the year 2019, it's likely that you've heard of crowdfunding and supported campaigns yourself, so I'm sure you know what it is. We encourage our projects to run a campaign at least once as part of their overall fundraising strategy. Alternately, if you don't want to run a crowdfunding campaign, or if you want to offer giving levels to your donors on an ongoing basis, you can add some to your donation landing page on your website. From the My Fiscal Sponsorship page, click the Donations button and then Giving Levels. Your donors will then be presented with options on our website for different giving levels that they can contribute at, and if you want to offer donors rewards, their online debit or credit card donation can be partially tax deductible. Fiscal sponsorship can open the door to institutional funding as well, like from foundations or corporations. As with approvals of your individual solicitation and crowdfunding appeal campaigns, we want to be involved when you apply for grants from these sources. Before you start looking at grants, however, you should be aware of our grant eligibility requirement. We require that projects raise $1,000 before they are eligible to apply for grants through us. If you can show that you've raised $1,000 through contributed, not earned income, we may be able to waive that requirement. Secondly, please be aware of our review requirements. If you've met the grant eligibility requirement and would like to apply for a grant through Fractured Atlas, all of your grant application materials must be reviewed and approved by a Fractured Atlas staff member before they are submitted. Keep in mind that we require these materials to be submitted to us for review 10 business days before the deadline. And if we receive them within less time than that, the review may be subject to a $75 rush fee. Finally, depending on the grant opportunity, Fractured Atlas may even need to be the applicant of record, which is yet another reason why we need to review all of your application materials before they are submitted. Okay, so now that you have successfully solicited donations and have had patrons donate to your fiscally sponsored project, what's next? How do you actually access these donated funds? Well, first you'll need to send us the information for your checking account, which you can do so by downloading the sign-up form for Electronic Funds Transfer, or EFT, from your My Fiscal Sponsorship page under the Fund Releases heading. We strongly recommend that you have an separate account for your project's finances from your personal finances. This doesn't necessarily have to be a business bank account. It can be a separate personal checking account. Here's what it looks like. Pretty simple to complete. You can send us the completed form with a voided check in one of three ways. Scan and email it to us at support@fracturedatlas.org, fax it to 212-277-8025, or you can snail mail it to us. All of our contact information is available on our website as well. We require a voided check, bank statement, confirmation letter from the bank, or bank-issued direct deposit form so that we can substantiate the account holder's account name, number, and routing number. Once we have received your checking account information, you'll be able to submit a fund release request through our website. We hold all donations for 7 days after we process them to make sure that the check doesn't bounce or the credit card charge isn't disputed. After 7 days, donated funds are available for you to request unless we're waiting on a major gift letter for a check donation of $2,500 or more. We're happy to hold on to donated funds for as long as you need us to, provided that you remain a dues-paying member of Fractured Atlas with an active fiscally sponsored project, and then release them to you when you have project-related expenses. We do not automatically transfer funds to our projects. As a fiscal sponsor, we need to demonstrate that we maintain a certain degree of discretion and control over how funds raised through our program are used. The fund release request process is a control in place to make sure that fiscally sponsored projects are using funds in alignment with our charitable mission. When you submit a fund release request, You'll let us know how much you need and how much you'll be spending and how you'll be spending the money using some pretty broad expense category budget line items. So you can say that $1,000 is for public relations and $500 is for space rental. There is an other expense category, but here is a helpful hint. We almost never let anyone use other as an explanation for their expenses. Almost 100% of the time, your expenses will fit into one of the categories provided. If you have any questions about which line item to use or for your specific expense, feel free to reach out and ask our staff. One thing that you're not allowed to do is re-grant funds raised through your program to another individual or entity with no strings attached. The best use of fiscal sponsorship is to raise money to spend on expenditures related to art that you're creating or the service that you're providing. And this can include paying people a salary or a stipend for their time, but you're not able to award grants or prizes through fiscal sponsorship funds to other entities. For particularly large fund release requests, we will ask for backup documentation to substantiate the expenses. This serves as an additional way we provide oversight funds raised through our program. Documentation can be in the form of receipts, signed agreements, and invoices and quotes. If, for example, you're going to reimburse yourself or a collaborator for an expense paid out of pocket, we'd want to see a receipt showing that what was purchased and how much it cost. If you're planning to pay an artist for time spent working on your project, we'd want to see a signed invoice or agreement outlining what services were provided and how much the artist will be paid. Specifically, documentation will be required for all requests of $5,000, but we do reserve the right to ask for documentation for any requested amount and may ask for documentation at least once for larger requests that are less than $5,000. We're happy to be flexible though. If you're purchasing something online and cannot provide a quote, you can send us a screenshot of the item you plan to purchase. If you don't have a signed agreement with a contract collaborator, forward us an email conversation in which you agree to the services that they'll be rendered and amount to be paid to that artist. Ultimately, we're looking for some sort of agreement between you and your vendor or collaborator that outlines what goods or services will be exchanged and how much will be paid for them. Ultimately, you'll need all of this documentation for when you're filing your taxes, so the fund release process can really help you keep them in order. I see that we have some specific questions. I'm going to hold those until the end, and then I'll address all fund release questions at once. All right, so speaking of taxes, when you applied for fiscal sponsorship, you may recall that you were asked to provide a legal entity with a U.S. taxpayer ID. This is either an individual with their Social Security number or a business entity with its employer identification number or EIN. We can work with any type of legal entity, like a individual sole proprietor, LLC, corporation, etc. We ask for this because funds dispersed through our fiscal sponsorship program are reported as taxable income to that legal entity in the form of a grant. Each January, we issue a 1099 miscellaneous to individuals, sole proprietors, partnerships, and LLCs showing funds dispersed the previous calendar year to file with their other tax documents. The funds will be listed as Box 3, Other, or Grant Income. Corporations are not issued 1099s, but they will still need to report Fractured Atlas income on their tax documents. That said, you shouldn't necessarily have to pay income tax on Fractured Atlas fund releases. Because we only release funds to you when you request it for use on your specific project-related expenses, you should be able to offset the income on your taxes using the expenses that the funds paid for. We strongly recommend that you work with an accountant to file and keep careful documentation of your expenditures as you are working through your taxes. An important thing to keep in mind is that your project is a separate business entity from Fractured Atlas. One of the great aspects of this is that you maintain complete ownership over the work that you create and your art. But we do not grant you 501c3 status. Only the IRS can do that. Rather, we are extending some of the benefits of our nonprofit status to the projects that we sponsor. To that extent, we'll want you to check in with us on a few things, primarily the use of our tax ID. I'm sure if a friend of yours asked for your social security number, you'd be a little curious why. In the same way, anytime you encounter a situation that requires Fractured Atlas's EIN, please let us know so that we can advise on its usage. We're happy to provide sponsorship confirmation letters addressed to specific potential donors or sponsors to help grease the wheels, but we cannot provide a one-size-fits-all confirmation documentation with our EIN, as we want to be involved with each and every time someone is requesting our information. Just email us at support@fracturedatlas.org and we'll be happy to help. We can also provide a letter to help you obtain nonprofit rates from vendors that offer them. It's usually up to the vendor if they'll extend you the rate, but most are willing to do so. This is especially helpful when renting spaces. If the venue offers a nonprofit rate, we can usually help you get a discount. Again, just shoot us an email and we'll send you a letter. However, we are not able to help you with sales tax exemption because our lawyers have advised us not to, since we cannot provide oversight over the purchase or rental. We are also not able to help with you set up a bank account using our EIN. Any account that you create needs to be set up in your own name with your own tax ID. So don't sign anything that requires our name or tax ID without running it by us first. Finally, nonprofit rates do not apply to bulk postage for your mailings. This is something that you would only have access to if you had your own 501c3 status. And again, only the IRS can give you your own 501c3 status. The final major fiscal sponsorship policy to bring to your attention is our annual report. For any fiscally sponsored project that either processed donations or requested fund releases in a given calendar year, we are going to require that you submit to us an annual report updating us on your activities. The report is due April 1st, and we will send out 3 reminders starting at the beginning of the year. If you do not complete the report by April 1st, we will freeze your project, but it's relatively simple to unfreeze your fiscal sponsorship. All you have to do is submit the report and then just shoot us an email. You can access your annual report on the My Fiscal Sponsorship page under Info/Reports button. The report is entirely online, so you don't need to prepare a different document, and it has 2 major components. The first is that we ask you to provide a brief narrative description of what you accomplished the previous calendar year. This can be as detailed as you like, although we would prefer that you keep it relatively brief so that it doesn't take us too long to review. With the narrative, you provide a numerical impact for your work to show how many people were exposed to your work and how many artists participated. We also ask for updated financials because we only process contributed revenue for your fiscally sponsored project. We are only aware of income and expenditures relating to the funds that we've handled. So here's an opportunity to tell us about other funds handled separately from the program, where they came from, how they were spent. Also, if you changed how funds released through our program were spent, like if you said $1,000 was going to be going to be used for transportation, but you ended up spending it on utilities, here's your chance to let us know so that we can better adjust our own books. The annual report is another important way that we demonstrate the discretion and control over how funds raised through our program are used. But this is also a way for us to collect data about the artists and arts organizations that we serve so that we can better understand our own impact in the nonprofit arts sector in the United States. The more accurately you can provide your data, the more complete is our picture for the kind of business our sponsored projects are able to do in their own communities. All right, so I'm about to open it up for questions. I hope you've all gotten a sense for how easy our fiscal sponsorship program is to use and how much power you have at your fingertips through the online tools available on our website. I would encourage you once again to thoroughly explore the My Fiscal Sponsorship page and our program manual and knowledge base for a more comprehensive overview of all of our program policies and procedures. Before we officially open it up for questions, I would like to quickly introduce Fractured Atlas's other programs and services. Firstly, Artfully. Artfully is an online system to manage your tickets, donations, and contacts. It's a simple, elegant way to keep track of events, people, and your everyday work. You can sell tickets on your site or through an Artfully storefront and provide ticket buyers and donors with automatic email receipts, among other things, to manage ticket orders. Artfully works with our fiscally sponsored projects, so you can track your donors and other fans in the same place. It's a great way to start understanding your audience, managing your segments, and organizing your communications. Our next program is Space Finder. Space Finder is an online marketplace that matches renters with venues that meet their unique needs. For artists, the process of finding workspace can be frustrating and inefficient. Meanwhile, venues have limited resources to spend on finding new renters. Earned revenue is critical for creative venues, yet many rental spaces are tragically underutilized. Through the Space Finder program, Fractured Atlas is increasing visibility of rental options, helping artists find the space they need, and helping venues promote and rent their spaces. There are over 5,000 spaces listed and 554,000 searches for spaces every year. There are also $800,000 or more annual rental referrals to participating creative venues. Space Finder is available and are coming soon to all of the locations listed here. All right, so thanks to the combined purchasing power of Fractured Atlas's community, our members also have access to high quality coverage and insurance for much lower rates than would otherwise be possible. More importantly, with one foot in the arts and another in the world of insurance, we've worked with some of the world's leading insurance companies to design a number of proprietary insurance programs that are specially tailored to meet your specific needs. We've even made the process as quick and as painless as possible. If you have any questions about our insurance program, please visit fracturedatlasinsurance.org or reach out to our brokers at Locked In Affinity. All right, so we are at the point of the evening for questions. I see I have a couple here, so I'm going to go back to some of the oldest here and start to work through them. All right, so I see here a question about 7% on non-cash donations. I think I addressed this, but again, yes, non-cash donations do have the 7% applied to them. It's assessed from the value of the goods, which is valued by the donor. At what point are the fees assessed? Donation of fees are assessed automatically when we process the donations. So you don't have to worry about paying that money back to Fractured Atlas or anything like that. We automatically assess it. All right. Artist fees and invoices, those are certainly considered project-related expenses. You would submit a fund release request to pay for your artists. There is a drop down for artist compensation, and you could release funds specifically for that. That would not be a problem. Okay, I've got a bunch of questions here. Can I do ADP payroll from my business? I'm not exactly sure what you mean by ADP. You're welcome to have the funds released into your business bank account and then run payroll from that. But again, the bank account, we have to have a bank account on file, and the funds would still be reported as released to the specific legal entity on file. All right, we have another question here. When I file my personal tax return, do I have to include the income from Fractured Atlas? And if so, is it taxable? Yes, you do. So if you are the legal entity on file, if it's you with your social security number, then the funds released to you throughout the year are considered taxable income and should be reported on your taxes at the end of the year. If you release more than $600, you'll get a 1099 miscellaneous. However, as I said during the webinar, if you're keeping good records, you should be able to write off the expenses that you released funds for those funds on your taxes. So I would just keep really great records and highly recommend getting an accountant or some sort of tax preparer in anticipation. All right, next question here. When I receive the money from Fractured Atlas for items such as art supplies, etc., does this have to be claimed on my tax return? So yes, I think that kind of circles back to what I was saying previously. All funds released are considered taxable income, even if you are using them for project-related expenses. but you should have a record of those project-related expenses and be able to write them off on your taxes at the end of the year. I am not a licensed tax preparer or accountant or attorney, so I can't provide official advice, but that is our experience. And again, I would recommend you reach out to an accountant ahead of time. Do you need a budget to be submitted for each fiscal year? That is a great question. No, we do not require that you submit a budget every fiscal year. When you submit your fiscal sponsorship application, you'll see that there is a section for a budget. This is not a weighted section of the application. It is a way for us to understand the scope of your project. And then once your fiscal sponsorship is approved, other than the annual report, that is really the only budget reporting that we require. So there's the budget in the application and then the annual report, but we don't require you to submit a budget every single year for approval. Will you be able to view this webinar? Again, absolutely. We are recording the webinar currently, and I will email it out all to you by the end of the week. So absolutely. Are there fractured atlas materials online that you recommend for doing an art auction? We don't generally run auctions because auctions would be considered earned revenue. And again, fiscal sponsorship cannot process earned revenue. We can only process contributed revenue. Unfortunately, I don't have any resources off the top of my head to run an auction. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't really have much for that question. All right, I think I have worked through most of them here. If anybody has any other questions, we've still got a few minutes. I'm happy to answer them. But while we're waiting here, I do want to circle back to some of our other programs that we have here. I want to talk a little bit more about Artfully. So Artfully is our ticketing and CRM platform. I think it's probably one of our most powerful programs. And it is also currently free to sign up and use until you start charging people for money. So once you start charging folks to attend events and to purchase tickets, then there are fees that are incurred, but it's totally free to sign up and use it to sell free tickets and also to use it for customer relations and management. It's a really great marketing tool. And because it is free to sign up for, I'd really encourage you just to sign up and try it out and dig around a little bit in there and see how it goes. All right, I see I have another question here. What if I sell artwork donated by an artist, for instance? So if the artist were to donate the work of art to you, they could get a tax receipt for that. And then you would be able to sell it, and that would be considered earned revenue for you. But that would be really the only way that we would be able to help with the processing of sales of artwork. Does that make sense? Okay, great. I think I have another question over here. This is a great question. If I make a donation to my organization that is in my name, can I still get a donation tax letter? So we really strongly discourage folks from donating to their own projects. Also, according to the IRS, a donation is, again, a gift that you are receiving no benefit for. If you are donating to yourself, you're getting the tax receipt for that, and you are also ultimately getting those funds back. And so that would make the donation null and void. Ultimately, also, it's going to make things a little messy on your taxes if you try to write it off and also take it as income. So we really just discourage you, don't donate to yourself. Also, you lose the 7%, just keep the funds in your bank account and use them for any expenses. All right, any other questions? Does Fractured Atlas send W-9s to our contractors or collaborators? No, we do not. So because all the funds are released directly to the legal entity on file to one bank account, it's then up to you to pay any of your collaborators or contractors. And if you need to issue them a 1099, it would be your responsibility to do so. Or excuse me, I'm so sorry. If you need to issue them a W-9, it would be your responsibility to do so. All right, any other questions? All right, well, while we still have a few minutes, I'm going to touch back on our insurance program as well. So our insurance program is run with the help of our brokers, Locked in Affinity. They administer over the program and would be the point people if you have any specific questions, but fracturedatlasinsurance.org has a ton of information, and you're actually able to get instant quotes on there, as well as purchase quotes for specific policies as well. It's very easy and straightforward. It does require you to be a dues paying member, which if you're going to be fiscally sponsored, you would already be. So that barrier is already no problem. I already see right now from somebody in the chat box, we have an endorsement that says the insurance program is fantastic. I'm really glad to hear that. But yeah, I definitely encourage if anybody has any insurance needs to go check out fracturedatlasinsurance.org. Would an artist fee require us to issue a 1099? So unfortunately, because I'm not an accountant or an attorney, I can't advise on what sort of tax papers or forms you need to issue to your contractors or your artists. So I would recommend contacting an accountant on that. Again, Fractured Atlas will issue the legal entity on file a 1099 miscellaneous at the end of the year. But ultimately, if any of your employees require any sort of forms or tax filing information, that is going to be up to you to issue. All right, any other questions? I don't want to cut anybody off if you're just kind of thinking through some stuff here. Also, if you haven't had a chance to apply yet, the application itself, it's pretty straightforward. Like I said earlier, so there's a budget section, which is not weighted. It's really just to give us a sense for the scope of your project. And then the two sections I will say that we really look a lot at are the project activities. So what is the art that you're actually making? And the public benefit. So who are your audiences? Who are you serving? Who are the artists that you're involved with? And then once you submit the application, the official review period is 1 to 2 weeks, although oftentimes folks hear back a lot faster than that. I will also say if we have any questions about your application, we will reach out to you and ask them. We very, very rarely just flat out deny somebody. So if anything comes up or if we see anything that we are a little confused by, we will be sure to contact you. It looks like I have a hand raised here. Did I have another question? If you have questions, feel free to put them into the Q&A or the chat. Oh, absolutely. All right. So I have a question here about using the separate crowdfunding program. Okay. That is an excellent question. We actually have an entire webinar dedicated to crowdfunding as well, which I very much encourage you all to attend. Our crowdfunding platform is called Fundraising by Fractured Atlas. It is the only crowdfunding platform that we can work with. Fractured Atlas is unable to process donations that come through Indiegogo, Kickstarter, GoFundMe, or any other site like that. But Fundraising by Fractured Atlas functions very, very similarly to those sites. It has a time limit. The maximum that you can run a Fundraising by Fractured Atlas campaign is 90 days. That being said, we really encourage folks to run their campaigns for less time than that. We find that kind of 30 to, I would say 45 days is the sweet spot. You also would set a goal for yourself, a goal amount. You would be able to set up rewards levels. There's a narrative section where you can write about your project. And then there's also a place where you can put a video or image. So it's very similar to other crowdfunding platforms. The one thing about Fundraising by Fractured Atlas that sets us apart is that it is a keep what you raise campaign. So you don't have to reach your goal to keep the funds that you've raised. And then also, like all donations that come through Fractured Atlas for our fiscally sponsored projects, you're able to access the funds after 7 days the 7 days after the funds are donated. So you don't have to wait until the end of the campaign to access the funds, which I find to be really, really advantageous. And we definitely encourage folks to check out the crowdfunding campaign once they're approved. And yes, it's the same 7% administrative fee. There's no additional cost or fee to use Fundraising by Fractured Atlas. Is there a set letter to use when asking an identity to be our fiscal sponsor? Well, so for Fractured Atlas, we have our online application, so you don't have to worry about writing any sort of LOI or appeal or solicitation letter. You would just, first of all, become a dues paying member, and then you'd be able to access the application online. Once you've submitted the application and you've been approved, then you would be fiscally sponsored. If you're looking more for donors or corporate sponsors, we don't have a template letter or anything like that. But again, if you're fiscally sponsored and then seeking donors, we would ask you to send any sort of appeal or solicitation to us first for review and approval. All right. Any other questions for the night? We have just a few minutes left. If you do have any other questions, please feel free to email us at support@fracturedatlas.org, or you can also give us a call at 888-692-7878. I've also pulled up here some other webinars that I would really encourage you to check out. Like I said, we have a crowdfunding webinar that is super just chock full of good information and good strategies for crowdfunding. As I said, our knowledge base is really, really robust as well. And so I would really encourage you to kind of do a deep dive in there. It is a lot of information, so don't get overwhelmed, but it's there to help, and we're here to help as well. All right, I'm going to ask kind of one last time, any lingering questions? Again, I am recording this, and it'll be going out to all of you via email by the end of the week. So you will be able to review everything that we've just talked about this evening. If any other questions come up, obviously, please feel free to email us at the support@fracturedatlas.org address. Oh, I have a quick question here about Artfully. Does Artfully charge a processing fee? That's a great question. So there are 2 fees associated with Artfully once you start charging for tickets. There is a $2 per ticket fee that your patrons are going to pay, and then a 3.5% credit card processing fee that comes directly out of the settlement before the funds hit your bank account. So those are the only 2 fees currently associated with Artfully: $2 per ticket fee and 3.5% credit card processing fee. But again, that is only if you want to if you want to charge for tickets through Artfully. If you just want to use the CRM or customer relations management aspect, that's totally free to sign up and use. Or also to sell free tickets. You're welcome to do free tickets through Artfully for free as well. Okay, all right. I think I have saturated all of you for this evening. Well, I really appreciate you taking time out of your night to attend tonight's webinar. Like I said, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to support@fracturedatlas.org. Our slim, 8-person staff is very, very dedicated, and we're here to help. You can also reach us at phone at 888-692-7878. And we'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. Thanks so much for joining tonight, and I'm sure our paths will cross again. Have a good evening, everyone.